Welcome, not only to the two of you who are joining me here today, but anybody who's going to be watching this later as we kind of share the connections that we have as we're all sitting from our homes. This is a special Bachfest interview with David Chin, who is going to help me here in interviewing Michael Maul all the way in Germany. So this is how the internet keeps us connected. Somebody told me today that just be very grateful that a pandemic like this didn't happen 20 years ago, or we'll be all on our Nokia phones playing Snake. And here we actually get a chance to if a tragedy as big as this, we still manage to make some interesting artistic things happen. So this is my first time meeting Mikhail. I would actually like David, who's worked with him quite extensively. I've heard all these stories. I've seen the Bachfest series called Encountering Bach. Perhaps, David, I could invite you to introduce our special guest for today.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So, okay, so Mikhail is probably one of the most important and original, one of the most renowned Bach scholars of our time, a very young but accomplished Bach scholar, and also definitely a Bach lover and also a terrific musician. And he had published several books, but I think Mikhail is known for his discovery of the last Bach vocal work that we have today. 2 years ago, Mikhail officially became the artistic director of Bachfest Leipzig, which he has been running a fantastic and very successful international Bach festival in Leipzig. So we are very glad that you're here, Mikhail. And he is a very great friend of mine.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. My skin turns into red after you introduced me in such a wonderful manner. Thank you.
Well, when David gave that introduction, there were things about that which I didn't know about you, and I can only imagine what it's like to discover a Bach work and introduce that to the world. It reminds me of the letters that were written when they found the manuscripts of the Brandenburg concertos hidden in Princess Amalia's library, and I remember the words from the person discovering it. It says it's almost like this eureka moment. Amazing, this is, and you must have had a similar feeling when you discovered those.
Yeah, it definitely was a similar feeling. It was already 15 years ago, so quite a long time ago. I was 27. And more or less by accident, I ran into an unknown Bach autograph, but it was not signed by him. So I only recognized his handwriting, and I was the lucky one who recognized it actually and realized, oh, that's an unknown piece by Bach.
Wow.
The first unknown piece by Bach after 75 years. So it was a big sensation and made me famous, at least in the Bach world, immediately. So I was the lucky one.
Well, the thing is that you recognized his handwriting, and that reminds me of what Oprah says, which is luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So I'm glad you had the preparation for that opportunity. Let's go straight into why we're here today. It's been a remarkable time since the live stream of St. John Passion, which has such an impact. From what I have come to understand, there were 76 countries from which it was watched at least, 500,000 views. I heard that you got 50 videos sent to you about people singing along or watching it. And on a practical level, it's managed to garner some 20,000 euros in donations. So it's been a great impact. And I just want to know whether that's what you had envisioned when you first started on a project like this.
Yeah, my first vision was in the moment when we more and more learned that we have to cancel the festival and that we have to cancel the idea to unite the entire Bach world in Leipzig in June, to find a kind of compensation for this. And so suddenly the idea appeared to organize a performance of St. John Passion in Leipzig, where we will find an opportunity to unite the entire Bach world in a virtual way. Yeah, because of the virus, it was not possible anymore to travel. But we had in our schedule for Bachfest in June a very special performance of St. John Passion. You know, on the first weekend, we used to have the so-called Bach stage. It's an open air stage on the Leipzig marketplace, where we are having performances, Bach crossover, Bach and rock and roll, Bach and heavy metal. And for Saturday night, there was scheduled a performance of this St. John Passion, performed only by 3 musicians, but with the audience singing the chorales. And in the middle of March, when we realized, okay, it seems that we have to cancel the festival, well, suddenly the idea turned up to take this particular performance and reschedule it from the Bach stage in June to Good Friday in St. Thomas Church. I learned in the middle of March that all the performances of Bach Passions, not only in Leipzig, maybe in the entire world, were cancelled. And this version with 3 musicians, we still had the opportunity to perform it, because you find enough spaces, especially in a place like St. Thomas Church, to have enough distance in between the musicians. So I asked them, are they free? Are they willing to do that? And they were quite enthusiastic about this. And even St. Thomas Church, who just cancelled their performances of the original version of St. John Passion, were very open to this idea. And yeah, then we started to organize it. And my vision was not, as I said earlier, not only to have the performance with these 3 musicians. I was totally clear that we need to have a live stream to unite the entire world in this performance, no matter where they are, no matter in what circumstances they are. And the good thing was that it worked quite well, that within 1 week or so, we had all the important partners in terms of financing the entire event, but also organizing it, and also finding enough musical partners. As I wrote in my little report about this endeavor, in the middle of March, this fantastic video by David Chin turned up by Bachfest Malaysia, producing 1 chorale from St. Matthew Passion in a social distancing version. Yeah, I had the big honor to take part in it, because I received an email by David, I guess it was on March 17 or so, saying to me, here is a video where I'm conducting this chorale, please play it on your violin, 3 verses, and then send it to me by midnight. So, and I did it. And I actually wasn't sure what I have to expect after I submitted my
Yes.
3 verses played on the violin. And then I remember very well that the next morning, when I opened my Facebook account and saw the final result David produced more or less overnight, I was crying tears. I was so moved by this performance, by all of you, members of your group in Malaysia, in Hong Kong. There was a lady in Sweden, some people were playing in the US.
Bernice.
My friends in Leipzig, me too. So, and it was really moving. And this actually created, or this was the basic for my idea to include into this particular version of St. John Passion for 3 musicians, performances of several chorales by Bach choirs who were invited to Bachfest in June, but who couldn't travel because of the restrictions. And so I decided to include at least 4 groups by asking them to produce one of the chorales from St. John Passion. So, and that's what David learned immediately after I decided to organize this performance of St. John Passion. I sent him a message, or did we Skype? I'm not entirely sure what we did. I guess we Skyped. And I asked him, would you be ready and happy to produce one more chorale, this time from St. John Passion? It was O hilf Christi Gottes Sohn. So I asked David, and he said, yes, we will do that. I also asked the Ottawa Bach Choir, I asked the Bach Stiftung St. Gallen, and of course the St. Thomas Boys Choir here in Leipzig, because they were staying at home, no chance anymore to sing together. And yeah, within 1 week, I had all these chorales by groups from outside the church showing in the performance or demonstrating in the performance that the entire world is united in this particular performance. And I also wanted to have the Bach community to sing along. But David gave me the advice that better not trying to organize a kind of Zoom or Skype session within the concert, because this wouldn't work, because you can't get the music in the church simultaneously to what's going on outside the church. That was definitely a wise decision. But what I learned is our invitation to all the people who watched the live stream to sing along was very well received. So meanwhile, we received more than 50 videos by people from all over the world singing along.
So in essence, you actually got what you wanted. It's just that you didn't get everybody streaming it live, but people were actually singing it live in their homes. So instead of people from their living rooms joining you over there in Germany, you joined them in their living rooms all around the world. Since you've just mentioned this, the way that you've constructed this, I'd like to just ask David over here. Mikhail just talked about the impact of the video that you put together in impacting a performance like this. What the personal impact it was for you in watching this and being part of this project, David?
Well, to be very, very honest, I learned about this version of St. John Passion actually, I think it was about a year ago when Mikhail told me that he would stage this version of St. John Passion in the Markt during Bachfest Leipzig. And as a very loyal and faithful Bach lover, I didn't know what I thought about this version of St. John Passion performed by only 3 musicians. It was the first time for me to listen and to watch this performance of St. John Passion on Good Friday in my own bedroom. And I remember it was so moving. I mean, the first chord when it was being struck on the harpsichord and on the percussion instrument, and it's just something out of this world. But at the same time, you could tell it is still Bach, because of the harmony, because of the rhythm, but it's not the usual sound that you expect. And now that we are in this pandemic, we are all in the locked-in situation, more or less in the entire world. When you have this only live performance of St. John Passion offering to the world when the entire world is watching, and with the knowledge that we are all being limited in certain numbers in certain countries for gathering, to add that layer aspect into the performance, I think it was even more moving. And I was in tears several times watching the performance. And I just have to say, very, very, very smart idea that probably only someone like Mikhail Maul could come up with this kind of idea.
Well, I should just add, David, that it's also interesting that that's how Bachfest Malaysia was formed. It's through a performance of St. John Passion.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
and we
so
also had the congregation and the audience to join us singing the chorale. So that's what we always been doing in Malaysia, to involve the audience.
So Mikhail, when we look at the impact, I would actually venture to say that if this pandemic wasn't around, and you decided to televise this live on, and everybody was doing their own business, and I don't think this would have had the impact that it actually has, in the sense that it's because everybody's sitting at home, not just because we're bored and have nothing to do, but there's something about the situation which we're in that it's actually caused such an impact. Could you talk a little bit about why you think, is it just the connection that you've made with all these choirs? Is it the idea that we are finding something to do? I don't want to prompt you too much with this, but I'm curious about what you think caused the impact that this remarkable performance has had.
I guess it was a mix of several reasons you just mentioned. So the one thing was the pandemic. So everybody was staying at home and wasn't able to have this typical tradition to join a performance of a Bach Passion in a live performance in a church. So many people from all over the world are used to go to a performance of a Bach Passion, or even to sing one of the Bach Passions in the performance around Good Friday. So, but this year, maybe first time for very long, in a very long period, it was impossible for them. And they all died for a chance to share this tradition together. So, and we came up with an opportunity. And I guess it was also important to have this performance at this particular place, at Bach's tomb, in Bach's church, but also not in the normal version, because we don't have a normal situation now. It's impossible for us to have normal concerts with plenty of people, plenty of musicians performing together. It's forbidden all over the world. And it's also impossible for an audience to share one room with each other, a concert hall or even a church. So this version for the three musicians, despite the fact that it was not invented for the pandemic,
yes, it came in quite
very
useful.
well into this situation. So, yes. and all these reasons together actually created or were the basis for this amazing impact we had with the performance.
Yes, I mean, even if you had a full choir and orchestra who was willing to come in, they wouldn't be able to, because there's no way you can have a full orchestra with 6 feet in between them.
Yeah, and even if we had performed it in the normal version, it would have been in a way wrong, because we don't have a normal situation.
Yeah.
So, but we all loved it, because the one reason is it was extremely well performed. I mean, the Benedikt Christiansson was amazing. So, and even the percussion player was amazing, and the harpsichord player, they all were amazing. This very much reduced version of the piece, it actually did not violate Bach's music, because Bach's music is so strong and it still works in this very basic version. But it also demonstrated wonderfully that we are in a very difficult situation. But in this situation, we really want to maintain our traditions, including to perform a Bach Passion together. And the icing on the cake was definitely the fact that we were able to include choirs from all over the world singing to chorales. And that meant a lot. So, and this entire mix was obviously the perfect mix to create such an amazing impact.
Well, as a violist, of course, I appreciate arrangements, because I steal the Bach cello suites all the time. We need to play more Bach, so we need to take it from somewhere. So I appreciate that. You've led me into this next section, which I want to talk about, which is, so we're in this situation, and this performance has sort of made us think a lot about what we can do together. And I particularly, with the performance, I found it special, because even the Bach Passion, which it requires such a lot of people, now it's actually being reduced. It's the same way that, as much as we would love to have, to get together with all our friends, now we cannot. If you're lucky, you're at home with a couple of family members. If you're a bit unlucky like myself, I haven't seen a human face-to-face in over a month. So that's a special challenge. But I'd like you to think about, once this is all over and we can get back together, would this kind of live stream, does it give you opportunities, do you think, that you would not have thought about before? Or do you think that once this is over, you look forward to just getting back to the way that things were? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, the answer is yes and no. I guess when this pandemic is over, we'll all be happy to go back to the normal situation of a live concert, because nothing is better than this. Yeah, to share the hall with the musicians and the audience, and to have this interaction. But what we have achieved with giving the opportunity to the entire world, not only to watch the live stream, but also to feel that they are taking part in the performance. This is something I'm quite sure which will work also without a virus forbidding us to go into a concert hall. Because I mean, this created a wonderful feeling of sharing something together, no matter where we are, and it's also a good thing for the climber. I mean, nobody needs to enter a plane to travel to Leipzig, yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, you know, I'm the head of a festival, of an international festival, and I actually need all these international visitors to finance my festival, and I would never stop organizing something like this. But I guess from time to time, and coming up with such an opportunity to unite people who share a certain interest, in our case, sharing the love to the music of J.S. Bach, and giving them the opportunity to taking part virtually in such a performance is something we should maintain also after the pandemic. I'm already searching for the next big project like this, because the impact was so amazing, and I wish it will not be a unique thing in history.
Well, you just mentioned that again. You're the head of an international music festival. I think there's so many things that are being cancelled that we sort of take it like this is another thing that's been cancelled. But this is a huge thing that has to be cancelled. I read through all of your messages when you send them to David and then through David to us, and I thought it was so well thought out that you're really at the beginning. We're still hoping to continue, but we are aware. And the way that you announced the cancellation immediately with an invitation to come in 2022, just the idea of planning 2 years ahead because of a situation which has just hit you in 2 weeks, that has been quite an incredible thing. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like dealing with, and for people to understand the magnitude of what kind of festival this is that had to be cancelled and then pushed to another year with the same theme of We Are Family?
Yeah. First of all, for me, this project is something that really came from the bottom of my heart. So it was 3 or 4 years ago when, for the first time, I had the idea to organize a festival where not only the big Bach names will perform their concert, but where we are trying to unite all these Bach institutions at one place in order to celebrate a Bach party. So also all these partly semi-professional or amateur Bach choirs. And I was quite sure that it would create a very special spirit. So, and it took us many months and years and thousands of emails to bring them all together, and it worked quite well. And we were actually in heaven when we learned sometimes last year that about 50 choirs from all the continents will travel to this particular Bachfest in June 2020 to Leipzig. So, and we were very much looking forward, not only me, but my entire team, who did an amazing job. And everything was planned, scheduled. The pre-sale worked quite well, and it was only a question of something like 12 or 13 more weeks to start the entire thing. And then suddenly this virus turned up. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, I'm a lucky one because my festival is taking place in June. Those festivals taking place in spring, they really have a problem, but that's not my problem. The pandemic will be over before my festival started. So that's what I thought in the beginning of March. And then day by day, you know, that was a global phenomenon. Day by day, we all realized more and more this is something which will keep us busy for much more than 2 months, maybe the entire year. So, and it was really hard for me to deal with the idea that this particular Bach We Are Family Festival could be cancelled. And I was discussing constantly with my colleagues different scenarios starting around March 10. What can we do to at least rescue the idea of Bach We Are Family? And then it happened quite well that we came to the result that best thing would be to combine a cancellation also with the message that we are not canceling the idea of Bach We Are Family, but that we are trying to postpone this festival motto, this idea, to 2022. 2021 was impossible because everything is already scheduled. So, but 2022 sounded realistic, and I sent out an email to all the choirs telling them that we are thinking about several scenarios, and I'm curious if they would still be on board in case we are doing a cancellation, but trying to postpone the entire festival idea of Bach We Are Family to 2022. And within some days, I received so many warm messages. They all were saying things like, we are really, really happy about this idea, about this proposal, and we are definitely still on board in 2022. And actually, meanwhile, we learned that in our country, we are having travel restrictions to Europe already till the end of August. So even in case Bachfest 2020 in June in Leipzig had happened, they didn't have the opportunity to travel to Leipzig. And this fact doesn't fit the idea of Bach We Are Family. So
well, I would actually suggest that when we meet in 2022, the difference from 2022 and 2020 is that we have already collaborated even before we met. And so there is, I think there is going to be something special in 2022 when, you know, you meet another choir and you've seen them before. You've seen them because you've already participated in this performance of St. John Passion.
The lucky coincidence was that at the same time when we are announcing the cancellation of Bachfest 2020 and the postponement to 2022, we also came up with this idea of a performance of St. John Passion, uniting all of us while singing the chorales. This really gave us the opportunity to experience at least once in 2020 the spirit of Bach We Are Family. And I'm so happy about this. And meanwhile, I'm learning that people from all over the world, no matter if they are members of Bach choirs or just Bach lovers, actually copying the motto Bach We Are Family. And meanwhile, my impression is it's not only the motto of a certain Bachfest anymore. Now it's a kind of movement in the world. Bach We Are Family.
And perhaps in future times you can think of Bach We Are Family again. I would like to. I'm thinking way too far. I'd like to go back one more time to the video, and I'm going to talk to David here for a minute. What was it like to put together these musicians, knowing that you were what the purpose was as it's not just something for Bachfest Malaysia, but it is a contribution to a wider, you know, international community. David, what was it like? I'm sure you spent many hours on the computer making sure that video came up to something that you
definitely spent lots of hours on the computer. I wonder when he is sleeping. I have no idea. Do you think I'm sleeping?
Wow, same to you. Same goes to you. I think everything panned out in such a beautiful and timely manner that everything just works well up until the performance, and I think will continue to work beautifully for the Global Bach family, I believe. Like Mikhail mentioned, for the first video that we did, I had no idea why I suddenly thought of doing a Bach chorale from St. Matthew Passion with our musicians together, and I I had no idea where that came about, but I remember very well, it was March 17th, because that was the day, if you remember, Andrew, our Prime Minister announced of the first phase of the movement control order, and that was the day. And I think that was also a time when globally we were all very worried about this pandemic, and it's starting to hit home. It's starting to be very close to us. It's not something that is in China and far away. It's something that's happening around us. And I was actually quite depressed and sad that day, because first of all, we had a concert actually scheduled on March 15th that has to be canceled, and then another concert in April and May. And we were all adjusting, and we feel very unsettled. And I was sitting in front of my desk after dinner, just pondering, thinking about life, and suddenly this idea came to my mind. And I'm glad we did the video, and I never thought that video would be so well received, but it was. And then Mikhail at the same time was boiling this idea of St. John Passion, getting everyone together, and then we just Skype. And I'm so glad that the Malaysia Bach Festival Singers and Orchestra, we have already done it once, the video, so we kind of know how to get things out. We also know how we could improve ourselves based on the first video. And honestly, the first video, if I knew it was so well received, I would have done it much better. And you could hear that where it's very rough. There were wrong subtitles and everywhere.
No.
If I knew, but I guess it was also the roughness, the rawness of the video that really moved people, maybe. But so the second time when Mikhail sent out this invitation, which I'm forever grateful, that always being able to be a part of Mikhail's great visions, great project, and I'm very, very honored. We are very honored to be a small part of it. And so my friend from Hong Kong, and Caleb Wu, whom you also know, Andrew, we have collaborated many times with him. When he watched the first video, he thought that, David, we could do better if we do it again. And I was like, I will never do another video. And then the next day, could you make a recording of a chorale? Then I immediately asked Caleb if he would be on board to help us with this. And he said yes. And so I said, okay, I'll do the visual part, and Caleb would do the audio part. And that came the chorale project, which then leads to our next project, ready to record the entire cantata. So very grateful, and I think also the time that there's no better time for me to have met Mikhail, to be honest. So it was just great. Everything just worked out so nicely for all of us.
Yeah, and I have to add something. I mean, he was so supportive in this entire project, David. You not only produced the one chorale, O Hilf Christe Gottes Sohn, but you also came up with within 1 hour or so, after I asked him, with a short instruction for the other choirs how to produce such a video. So that's what you did in just 1 hour or so. And he was also very, very supportive, also by bringing together the 6 videos I produced of the other chorale, Ach großer König, which was not performed by a Bach choir, but by mainly prominent Bachfest artists, including Ton Koopmann, Rudolf Lutz, Miriam Feuersinger, Klaus Mertens, Martin Petzold, Rex Mobley, and me, by the way. I submitted this 6 videos to him, and then afterwards I learned that he sent the audio to a friend in Hong Kong.
Yep, to Caleb.
That David himself did work on the video, and I got the result in something like 20 hours. I will never forget this, David. You were so important and supportive in this project, maybe like nobody else in the world. And I mean, isn't it amazing what opportunities we are having today? I mean, producing, for example, this one chorale, Ach großer König. So which was filmed by several artists in Leipzig, St. Gallen, Amsterdam, Netherlands, Cologne, Boston, and somewhere in Austria, somewhere in the Alps.
Mm-hmm.
And then the audio was done in Hong Kong and the video editing in Malaysia. So unbelievable. And I'm sure Bach would have liked it. Yeah,
I think I also have something to add to this. I mean, as you know, Andrew, we're living in the world, in a digital world. And of course we have almost full access to everyone's life on Facebook, knowing what they eat every day, how they live and all that. And the thing is, my personal feel about this pandemic and what we are doing is that I think it's an option for us. We could, Mikhail and I, and some other people, we could just sit around home and just doing nothing, blaming other people, blaming the world for this horrible event, and every day whining about the situation, not doing anything. And as I know, Andrew, yourself, every day you are teaching, you are coming up with new ways of online teaching and producing video, helping other teachers. I think it's our choice, it's our option, how we respond to this pandemic. And like I say, we could be very positive, continue to come up with new ideas, creative ways of producing things, creating content, and also how we could continue to serve our community as musicians, as artists, as manager, as directors. Or we could just sit there and basically complain about the government, complain about people. But I think we have all chosen to be on the positive side, where I guess this is not also a choice, but it comes out from the true passion that we have inside of us. Really, our love for music, and in my case and Mikhail's case, our love for Bach. And just this pandemic cannot stop us from sharing Bach's music with other people, and also continue to improve ourselves.
Well, it's so interesting that we started this whole conversation talking about Bach passion, and we are ending this conversation talking about the passion within us. I would like to thank both David and Mikhail for this wonderful interview. I would like to actually ask one last question of Mikhail before we finish. It's going to be now 2 more years before most of us here in Malaysia get a chance to meet you, get a chance to visit St. Thomas Church and be a part of that. Between now and 2 years from now, is there anything you'd like to say to those of us from Bachfest Malaysia who now will look forward not for a few months, but for 2 years? Between now and then, is there anything you'd like to say to all of us?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. The lesson I learned in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks when watching and also organizing all these videos is that it's really a pity that we can't do Bachfest 2020 now in June in reality. But I learned that we are already united in Bach, and we know each other, and actually we performed with each other. So I'm more convinced than ever that we will keep this idea alive, and it is no problem to wait for 2 more years to celebrate the party together in reality. What we are doing on the way to this particular event is just celebrating and sharing together our love to Bach on a virtual way. And this also can yield a lot of wonderful results.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank Mikhail particularly for including Bachfest Malaysia in your Bach family. And thank you for being a part of our Bach family as well. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.